Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another video, but this one's going to be a little bit different than what we normally do. So this is the first episode of the viewer deck submissions video series that I'm going to be doing here on the channel. So essentially, a bunch of the viewers, also on Twitter, but then mostly people on YouTube, put their decks in the description on the post that I had originally done, sharing the list. Like, basically, this isn't going to be necessarily a, constructive criticism. It's going to be more showing off the deck. Maybe I'll give, a suggestion or two or a spicy new card to maybe try out. But that's what this video is going to be about. The one thing I want to mention, though, is if you are interested in being featured in the next video, comment below a deck, like your deck list or another deck list you'd like to see shown off, and there's a good chance that it'll be featured in the next video. So we're gonna go ahead and start things off here with Ralphie. Ralphie is a long-time viewer of the channel here, actually one of the channel members here. He has a actually two sweet decks we're gonna talk about today, but the first one is gonna be a really sweet mono red Inti discard deck. The deck is super spicy. Let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, so first impressions of this deck, it is super duper sweet. So obviously we got the Inti discard, so Inti is a very important part of this entire deck. So it's whenever you attack, you may discard a card. When you do, put a 1/1 counter on target attacking creature and it gains trample until end of turn. And then whenever you discard one or more cards, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until your next end step. So we have a whole bunch of cards in here that get bonuses from being discarding cards or being discarded. So we have Flameblade Adept. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, it gets +0 until end of turn, which is just a really fantastic one drop. We've got Hollow One, and it costs 2 less for each card you've cycled or discarded this turn, which is pretty sweet. You got the Ox of Agonis, which you can escape, which also when it enters, you discard your hand and draw 3 cards, which is really cool. We got Smuggler's Copter, which also that discards. We've got Fable that also discards cards. So we have a lot of different cards. Voldaren Epicure makes a blood that discards cards. And then we got Play with Fire, just a really good burn spell. Demand Answers, again, another discard enabler. And then we have Fiery Temper, which is fantastic. If you discard this card and cast it for its Madness Cause, it's literally just a lightning bolt, which is really, really cool. So I love how synergistic this deck is. Definitely very, very sweet. The lands looks pretty good. I like the Bonder's Enclave. It's not a card you see a lot of people play, but Bonder's Enclave is really, really strong. I do like this card. Castle Embereth, another one really solid. Den of the Bugbear Mountains in Sekenzans, I like that. Sideboard looks really good. We got the Grafdigger's Cage, Pithing Needle, Running Volley, Rolling Vortex, the One of Tears, Brother's End, Hazaret, and Witchstalker Frenzy. This is a really, really solid deck. Also, bonus points, only $130 US, which is pretty darn good on that. Mostly just because we're not playing any of the expensive dual lands. Honestly, other than the Fable, this deck is incredibly cheap. So yes, this is a very, very spicy deck. Definitely a huge fan of this one. Alrighty, definitely a huge fan of that deck. Definitely a lot of really, really spicy cards. So the next one we're going to take a look at here is also one of Ralphie's decks. It's a Temur Dragon Control deck. It's really, really spicy. It's also a Pauper deck. It's the only Pauper deck we're going to be talking about today, but definitely a huge fan of this deck. Okay, so at first glance, this deck, I know it's technically Temur Dragon Control. There's really only one green card in here, and that is Avenging Hunter. So for those who don't know, the initiative cards in Pauper are incredibly strong. I mean, there's even, Avenging Hunter is probably one of the better ones, but there's even, the bad ones people play just because of how strong they are. Realistically, I think all these dragons are really good for commons. I mean, obviously you got, the Disperse one here, and then you got the Backside one, which is really good. You got Fang Dragon, which is pretty solid as well, and then Avenging Hunter is just fantastic. So definitely a huge fan of that. And then you just got some of the best instants and sorceries in the game right here. Brainstorm, Lightning Bolt, Ponder, Spell Pierce, Counterspell, Dragon's Fire, fantastic removal spell as well. You got Snap, Breath Weapon, which is one of the better board wipes that you can actually play in Pauper, which is just awesome. And then Lorien Revealed is just absolutely insane. Land base obviously looks pretty good too. You got the Ash Barrens, basic land cycling, so you do play the one Forest and the one Tangled Islet just for the Avenging Hunter. It's the only green card in the deck. Sideboard looks fantastic. Tormod's Crypt, blue and red Elemental Blast are both fantastic. Cast into Fire is very, very important just because of all the artifacts in the metagame. You got the Ghost Fire, which is really good, and the Murmuring Mystic, which I love Murmuring Mystic. That card is really good. I lost that card a lot when it was in Standard. So, definitely a huge fan of this deck. Very spicy Pauper deck, and it's only $55 US again. So, Ralphie, back-to-back, awesome decks. Huge fan of this Temur Dragon Control deck. Alrighty, the next deck is ready to go. So this one is the only commander deck that we're going to be showing off today. So this one is Decklist's, sorry if I mispronounced that, very, very cool old stick fingers deck for commander. And this deck is really, really spicy. I don't play a lot of commander much on the channel anymore, but this deck is really, really cool. Okay, so right off the bat, we definitely have a little bit of shenanigans that are going on here. So this is Decklist's Stick Fingers deck. So Old Stick Fingers, for those who don't know, is green, black, and X. When you cast this spell, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X creature cards. Put all creature cards revealed this way into your graveyard, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and then Old Stick Fingers' power and toughness is equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So the idea, and this is only, I'm going off assumptions here, we're trying to get X equals 3, so 5 mana, realistically. So then, there's only 3 creatures. Necrotic Ooze, which is, as long as it's on the battlefield, it has all activated abilities of all creature cards in all graveyards. So that means Old Stick Fingers is a Necrotic Ooze. Or sorry, we have to have it on the battlefield. My apologies for that. Then we have Scourge Familiar, which you can discard a card to add a black mana. And then Asmodeus, the Archfiend. So then it has black, 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 draw 7 cards, and then a black, return all cards exiled with it to their owner's hand, and you lose that much life. So just based off of what I'm going off here, is that we're trying, this is a Necrotic Ooze deck, is that we get the Scourge Familiar and the I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, the Asmodeus to get the activated abilities there. That's what I'm seeing, at least from this, which is really, really cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of the cards that are featured in here. So some of this is pretty stock. You know, we got the Abundant Harvest, we got Bone Shards, which is really good. Dig Up, very underrated card. I feel like not a lot of people play that. Never underestimate the power of a good fog. I usually like to play a Moment's Peace in a lot of my decks just because you get like the double fog. But yeah, I mean, fog is fantastic. No one ever suspects it. That's the thing. Unless people actually play it, no one ever realizes what's going on. So yep, I like this. Revitalize Your Repass is really, really good. Oh, Broken Bond is fantastic. I always love that. Just being able to disrupt your opponent, but also ramp a little bit is pretty good. Definitely a huge fan of that. Grapple the Past, obviously, you know, different graveyard filling cards are always fantastic. Nuclear Fallout. What is this one? I don't know what this one. Black, black, X. Each creature gets twice -X until end of turn. Each player gets X rad counters. Okay, I remember the rad counters, but I actually didn't know what Nuclear Fallout was. So, all right, that's pretty cool. I like that. Definitely very, very cool. Soul Exchange is sweet. Definitely a huge fan of that. Take a look at the rest of it here. Yeah, Buried Alive, really good. Life, Death, fantastic. Read the Bones, which actually, I don't know if you know about this one. There's a new, and it could be in here, and I'm just missing it. They actually made a new read for Read the Bones, where instead of Scry 2, Draw 2, Lose 2, it's Surveil 2, which I don't know if that would be relevant in this deck at all, but definitely something to keep in mind. But yeah, I love Read the Bones card. It's fantastic. Victimize is really good. Dread Return, Final Party, yes, fantastic. I like it all. Artifacts look pretty self-explanatory. What is this? Wanda? Oh, I remember the Wanda Vertebrae. Yes. No, this card is definitely really cool. I like that one. And then what was the one? Mimic. I don't know what this card is. So 2 mana. It's a treasure. Okay, sacrifice it, add 1 mana of any color. 2, becomes a shapeshifter artifact creature with base power and toughness 3/3 until end of turn. Very cool. I actually didn't know what that card was. So, all right, definitely cool with that. And then enchantment seems pretty self-explanatory, and the lands look pretty darn good. So yeah, honestly, this is really spicy. I definitely like this. At first, it took me a minute to realize what this deck was about. I'm like, oh, okay, I definitely like it. So this is a very, very cool deck. Huge fan of this one for sure. Man, I always forget how many cards are actually in Commander decks. You know, it's different with like Pioneer and Modern, you know, there's 60 cards and there's a lot of 4-ofs and such, but man, just all those single cards, man, whew, that's a lot of cards. So anyways, let's go and hop into the next one here. So the next deck is going to be Big Al's Waste Not Modern deck. It's our only Modern deck that we're going to be featuring in this video here, but it's really, really spicy. We see the deck a lot in Pioneer, but definitely not as much in Modern, so I'm really excited to talk about this deck. Okay, so we're up next with Big Al's Modern Waste Not deck. So, it's the only Modern deck we're going to be talking about today. So right off the bat, I like this. Burglar Rat, Nuzubi Informant, boom. Love both of these cards, absolutely fantastic. We got the discard effects. Priest of Forgotten Gods, fantastic card. Turok is awesome. I love Turok. The pro white, the card comes up so many times. Like, just having protection from white being really, really strong. So definitely a huge fan of that. Liliana Heretical Healer, also very fantastic. I know, actually, funny enough, my dad loves Liliana Heretical Healer. Like, I think he has, I'm pretty sure he still has that Commander deck with it. He loves Liliana Heretical Healer. The card is definitely very, very good. We got the Rankle here and Tegrid, which Tegrid is just, Oh man, I don't know if any of you have ever played against Tergrid before, but man, I mean, if your opponent makes you discard cards with this, and if they're good cards, you might as well just pack them up. I mean, the game, it's absolutely over. So definitely a huge fan of that. Defile is awesome. Huge fan of this card. Personally, I like seeing a 4 of with this, but I completely understand. Defile is fantastic with swamps. I mean, it is sweet. I wish this card was in Pioneer. It is absolutely fantastic. Sheoldred's Edict is also awesome as well. You don't really see it a lot in Modern for the most part, but it is very, very good. Huge fan of Sheoldred's Edict. And then we have the Wrench Mind as well. Basically like a Hymn to Turok, unless they discard an artifact. So it's pretty much just 2 mana, discard 2 cards. So definitely huge fan of Wrench Mind. Shrieking Affliction. Huge fan of that. I usually like to see it in conjunction with the rack, so maybe it's worth putting them both in the main, but I haven't played the deck, so I can't say that for certain. But definitely a huge fan of Shrieking Affliction. Waste Not is pretty self-explanatory. The card is awesome. Definitely a huge fan of Waste Not. I don't like playing against it, but I like playing with it. Let's put it that way. And then the land's really simple. We got the Gyreach Sanitarium and the Swamp. Definitely huge fan of that, because remember, you want the swamps for the Defile, so it's really important to play actual swamps. Like Castle Lochtwain is really, really good, but to take full advantage of Defile, you're definitely going to want that. You could maybe try to get away with playing like an Urborg, and then a couple other ones, but really, I like the basic swamps. I really do like that. And then sideboard, yep, we got the rack. Liliana's Triumph, I do like. If I don't know if you know about this card, there's a card called Sudden Edict, where it's an edict effect, so they sacrifice a creature, but it has split second, so it can actually be countered, which is pretty cool. I know you do got the Liliana Heretical Healer in there, so you do get the bonus from Liliana's Triumph. But maybe if you're interested in playing another edict effect, definitely try out Sudden Edict. It's very, very good without, it feels good when your opponent's playing Murktide Regent, and then that's their only creature, and it's like, bacha, gotcha, and they can't counter it, that kind of thing. So, but still very cool either way. Bantu's Last Reckoning, boom. No one plays that card anymore, and it's pretty solid, so I definitely like that. Liliana Waker of the Dead is very, very sweet. I love this card. You don't see it play a lot, but it is really, really good. Huge fan of it. And then we got the 2 more Rankle Master of Pranks. Definitely a huge fan of that. I really like this deck overall. I mean, only 81 US, also really, really cheap as well. This deck just looks sweet. If you like mono black piles in Modern, I think that this is the perfect deck for you. I mean, it's just making your opponent discard cards. Why wouldn't you like something like that? So definitely a huge fan of this deck for sure. Okay, so the next video we're going to be talking about is Sarwanoki's Black-White Budget Cat Oven deck. So another one of our channel members here, longtime channel member. So Black-White Oven is pretty cool. There's definitely a lot of advantages to actually playing white. I know typically you see like Rakdos Oven lists, but Black-White definitely has its advantages. The other thing is too, is it's a budget list. So definitely always excited to see a very cool budget list. Okay, so next up is Sarwanoki's Budget Orzhov Cat Oven deck. So right off the bat, boom, $53. That's perfect for a budget deck right there. Around the $50 range is fantastic, so perfect for that. First glance here, I love it. We got the Cauldron Familiar, obviously, with the Witch's Oven. That's what we're trying to do here. We've got Amalia, which I know a lot of people really don't like Amalia for obvious reasons, but Amalia, like non-combo, is fun and perfectly fair to play. I do like playing a fair Amalia. I really do. Like, obviously with Wild Growth Walker and some Explore shenanigans, it's kind of ridiculous. But if you're playing just a regular value Amalia, it's definitely very, very cool. So huge fan of playing 2 copies of those. I definitely really like that. We got the Cruel Celebrant and the Zulaport Cutthroat package. Fantastic. We also do have that new one coming out in Foundations. I don't know if it's worth it to maybe add another one, but definitely, certainly an option for sure. Midnight Reaper. Awesome. You don't see Midnight Reapers a lot anymore, and I really, really do like this card a lot. Murderous Rider, fantastic. Veto is also awesome. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life, so they lose essentially twice that much when you're draining them with the Cauldron Familiar, so definitely a huge fan of that. Ravenous Chupacabra. Choop. I love Choop. Chupaniscabra. Ravenous Chupacabra is fantastic. I've always liked this card. I don't play it as much as I used to, but I really, really do like the card. And then we have Teysa Karlov, which is just awesome. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So, I mean, Cauldron Familiar, boom, you get additional abilities from that. It's really, really good. Huge fan of Teysa Karlov in general. We got the Mortify classic removal spell there, Kaya's Wrath, and Revival to Revenge, which is not a card a lot of people know, so I'll read it to you. It's a little sideways here for me. So it's black, white. Return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Pretty good. And then Revenge for 4 white-black. Double your life total. Target opponent loses half their life, rounded up, which, if I'm not mistaken, should be an instant win con with veto, which is very, very cool on that. So bonus points on that. And then Open the Graves. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Boom. That card is sweet. So definitely a huge fan of that. So the lands, I really do like the land base here. So Restless Fortress is a fantastic budget land right there. We have the Snarls. Snarls, I really like these for multiple reasons. Obviously, it's fantastic for budget, but then it's just a great way to have all your lands come in untapped. A lot of my ultra budget lists that I like to build now typically have the Snarls, or like the, you know, the reveal lands, and then the check lands. So you play reveals, you play check lands, and then all basics. So that way, your check lands always come in untapped, and your Snarls, as long as you have them in the early game, they're always going to be able to come in untapped by revealing a land. I really do like the Snarls, and then you got the snow-covered plains and the swamps there, and then you've got the shadowy backstreet, which also counts for that as well. And then Temple Silence is also fantastic. I know it's not technically quite as good as the shadowy backstreet, but I really do like the Temple still in budget builds. So definitely a huge fan of that. Sideboard also looks really good. We got the Torment's Crypt and Duress. Fantastic. I always include them in all my budget lists. Fatal Push now is cheap. You can get them for like, you know, about maybe $1 a piece. It's really, really cheap. So definitely pick up your Fatal Pushes when you can. Elias Ilkor is awesome. Huge fan of this card. Kaya is really good. I remember when people were playing a ton of Kaya Orzhov Usurper. Not so much anymore, but the card is still really, really good. So definitely a huge fan of that. Got the other Murder Strider, Basilica Bellhaunt. I love Basilica Bellhaunt. This card is just awesome. No one plays it anymore. Who knows? Maybe I'll end up throwing a deck together on the channel here just to be able to play this card. I really do like it. Basilica Bellhaunt is fantastic. And then we've got 2 more vetoes, but it's Fanatic of Aclazotz. It's a different one. So I'll read this one for you in case you don't know. So 4/4 flyer. Whenever you sacrifice another permanent, you gain 2 life. If it's the first time this ability is resolved this turn. If it's the second time, each opponent loses 2 life. If it's the third time, make a 4/3 white and black vampire demon creature token with flying. So absolutely just getting a ton of value from veto there. So this list is awesome. I mean, it's Cat Oven, which is already pretty cool. You got a cool black-white splash there, and the white is definitely worth it. Huge fan of this deck list. This is awesome. Definitely huge fan of this, Darwinoki. Excellent job. Okay, so next up is Arcadius's Dimir Mill deck. Another channel member, so huge shout out to being a channel member as well. This deck looks really, really cool. It's Dimir Mill. If you're looking to be playing Mill in Pioneer, I definitely would suggest this deck. So let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, so next up is Arcadius's Dimir Mill deck, which I think it looks really good. Ruin Crab is fantastic. Maybe one day we will get Hedron Crab in Pioneer. Who knows? Right now we just have Ruin Crab. Still perfectly fine. We got Ashiok, which is secretly really good in this metagame, just because being able to just hate on Izzet Phoenix is really good, but then also with Amalia, it stops their Court of Callings. I think it's really good. Definitely a huge fan of Ashiok on that. Then we've got Jace the Perfected Mind is also fantastic. It's a little bit on the pricey side, not too pricey, but the card is definitely very, very good. Huge fan of Jace the Perfected Mind. We got our regular spells here. We've got Fatal Push and Opt, pretty self-explanatory. Drown and Lock is fantastic if you're playing Mill, just because obviously it's filling their graveyard, so that way it turns into a really nice Doomblade or a counter spell, so definitely a huge fan of that. Maddening Cacophony is fantastic as well. The kicker cost, you're not going to be doing that too often, but it is still something that could happen. Then we got Into the Story, which is just really, really good. Most of the time, this card is just 4 mana draw 4, which is really, really good. Breaking and Entering is fantastic as well. Really what you're doing is you're casting the one side where it's 2 mana and they put, I think it's 8 cards in. That's pretty much what you're doing with Breaking and Entering most of the time you play it. You're not going to be casting the Entering side. I'm assuming there's not even a way to actually cast the Entering. Looks like, oh, there is one mountain. Oh, the Fable Passage. Okay, I like that. Definitely having that option is pretty sweet. I like that. And then we have the Fraying Sanity, which Fraying Sanity is just so good. Technically, it's a one-shot kill, I think, with that and Maddening Cacophony kicked, which is also definitely not nothing. And then we got our lands here. We got Clear Powder Pathway, Dark Slick Shores, Drowned Catacomb, Fable Passage, which is really good with Ruin Crab. Field of Ruin, which, again, is really good with Ruin Crab. And then we got the rest here with the Restless Reef. Definitely a huge fan of that. Sideboard looks really good, too. We got Soul Guide Lantern, Spell Pierce, Damping Sphere, Negate, Crypt Incursion is awesome. This is basically how you win the aggro matchups with mill. You mill, and then you're at like 2 life and they swing for lethal, and then you're like, Crypt Incursion, I'm gonna gain 27, and then like the game's pretty much over from there. And then Extinction Event is also really good. I think it's probably the best black board wipe you could play right now in the metagame. And then you got the End and Deadly cover-up, which is also a really good one. So yeah, this list is sweet. Definitely like it. It's Dimir Mill. I know some people don't really like Mill, but if you like Mill, this is definitely the deck I would pick up. And you want to know what? $114, so bonus points on that for being a very cheap Pioneer deck to build. So, well done. Definitely a huge fan of this list. Alright, so the next deck we're going to check out is Alexander's Gruul Scales deck, which is very cool. We've done a number of different Scales decks here on the channel, but never a Gruul Scales list, and this deck looks really spicy, so I'm very excited to talk about this next one here. Okay, so next up is Alexander's Gruul Scales deck, which there's a couple things I want to talk about with this deck. Not even that, I mean, this is a fantastic deck. I really do like this. So really a lot of it's just a couple new cards that could be pretty good in this deck. So I'm almost wondering if Paw Patch Recruit could be good in there. It's from Bloomburrow. It's the 2/1 where whenever a creature you control is targeted, you put a 1/1 counter on another target creature. I'm wondering if that could almost be good. I don't know. See, I see that there's only Llanowar Elves and there's no Elvish Mystic, so I'm assuming it's probably just like looking for another 1-drop to play. So maybe, you know, it's worth considering that. In Scales, I've always loved the Pelt Collector in the Experiment 1 package. I've always been a really big fan of that, so maybe that could be, you know, definitely consider, you know, putting in there. Burning Tree is fantastic. It doesn't do 1/1 counter shenanigans, but it's just really good. Questing Druid, fantastic, huge fan of that. Curing Beastcaller is really good in this deck. You could almost maybe even make it a 4 of, honestly. It's just that good in this deck. Scavenging Ooze, Bone Crusher, Giant staples. Spellbreaker, huge fan of this as well. The secret tech on this is it's as long as it's your turn, you and it get hexproof, which is really good. So no more Settle the Wreckages or anything like that. No Shieldred's Edicts or whatever. Nope, you have hexproof. So definitely a huge fan of Gruul Spellbreaker in this deck. Kodama of the West Tree is absolutely fantastic. Huge fan of this card. You don't really see it a lot for the most part anymore. For a little bit, you know, people are playing it in Standard, but not so much anymore, especially because it just rotated. So, but you don't really see it in Pioneer. Thundering Raiju is awesome. This card is just sweet. I love Thundering Raiju. Put a 1/1 counter on a target creature you control. Then it deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of modified creatures you control other than Thundering Raiju. So this card's just absolutely fantastic in this deck. Domri's awesome. Temur Battle Rage, I love it. Just, you know, really any good-sized creature, just boom. Temur Battle Rage, it's got double strike and trample. It just ends the game right there, which is really good. Hardened Scales, I'd probably go to a 4 of, just because I think this is almost like the best card in the deck in a way. I'd probably just go up to 4. I do like the Ranger class as well. Ranger class is just a really good card in general. And then when you're playing Hardened Scales and all these other good 1/1 counter shenanigans, it's just good. It's also fantastic at putting counters on things that don't naturally get counters. So like Burning Tree Emissary, for instance, is fantastic. Bone Crusher Giant, it can do that as well. Invigorating Hot Springs, whew, I love this card. Invigorating Hot Springs is awesome. I never really played the card that much, but I've always wanted to. I've got 4 of them, always ready to play. I do like this card. Being able to just essentially give your next 4 creatures a 1/1 counter is really good. So definitely a huge fan of Invigorating Hot Springs. Land base looks really good too. Copperline, Crag Crown, Den, Forest, Carpolution Forest, Lair, Mountain, Stomping Ground. Looks a lot, honestly, close to most of my decks that I build. And then the sideboard, Tormod's Crypt, fantastic. Chef's kiss on that. And the Festivities is great. Pick your poison, fantastic. Pithing Needle, boom. Damping Sphere, or Damping Sphere, yes. Snakeskin Veil, puts a counter on, protects your creatures. Gruul Charm, get past pesky blockers, kills the spirits decks, boom. Rampaging Ferocidon, like that too. Honestly, this looks like a sideboard that I would probably build, so that's probably why I like it so much. But yeah, this list, fantastic. I think it's really spicy. You never see Gruul Scales decks specifically. It's usually just like green-white is kind of the main one that you usually see. So I really do like this, and once again, bonus points, $121 US right there to build the entire deck. So huge bonus points to Alexander. This deck is sweet. Thanks for sharing. I really do appreciate it. Alright, so the last one we're going to talk about here is Luke's Mardu Doom deck. This deck is super spicy. It's also a Yorion pile, so, you know, it's a little bit different. It's like the one format that you can actually play Yorion now is Pioneer. But obviously you got the idea of blinking all the different permanents. There's a lot of really spicy enchantments in here. This deck is really cool. Let's go ahead and check out our final list here. Okay, and last but not least is Luke's Mardu Doom deck. So the idea of this deck is we're trying to blink things out and get a whole bunch of value from it. So Yorion says when it enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you own and control, and then return those cards to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. That's the idea behind Yorion. So, which the other thing, obviously it's a little weird, it has to contain at least 20 more than the normal starting total. So that's why we've got 95 cards here, because it's an 80 card deck, and then we got the 15 card sideboard there. So what are we trying to blink in this deck? So we have Ephemia the Cacophony. I'm sorry if I butcher that again. So at the beginning of your end step, you may exile an enchantment card from your graveyard. If you do, make a 2/2 black zombie. Definitely very, very cool, and it's also an enchantment. We got Heliod, the one from March of the Machines, which no one ever plays. Huge fan of this card in general. And then we got a Shieldred, because Shieldred is really, really good. So let's go and take a look at the non-enchantment cards that we're playing. So we're playing Rite of Oblivion. This is a fantastic removal spell. You never actually see people play it, and it's definitely very, very good. And then we have Beseech the Mirror, which is also just another slam dunk card. It just searches for anything in this deck. So huge fan of that. Let's go and take a look at the enchantments. We've got Bitter Reunion. Huge fan of this card. It's a really, really good draw spell there. Oath of Chandra, fantastic. I really, really like this one too. If a Planeswalker enters the battlefield under your controller's turn, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. You don't play it for that. It's really just because of the 3 damage to target opponent, or sorry, 3 damage to target creature and opponent controls. It's just really, really good. And then blinking out, obviously with Yorion, is very, very good. Tribal Ambition, making an opponent sacrifice a creature is fantastic. We got Fable the Mirror Breaker, don't need to say anything about that. Oath of Kaya, also really, really good. Deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. And then when it attacks, whenever an opponent attacks you, okay, I gotta reread this card. Whenever an opponent attacks a Planeswalker you control with one or more creatures, Oath of Kaya deals 2 damage to that player and you gain 2 life. I knew what that did, I just had to slow down and read it for a second, but definitely a huge fan of Oath of Kaya. Treacherous Blessings, also fantastic. I really, really do like this card as well. Doom Foretold, obviously the main part of the deck. Doom Foretold. And then we're also Fires of Invention. So we've got just some really, really strong 4-mana enchantments there, which we can obviously grab with Beseech the Mirror, no problem, as long as we have the bargain cost to be able to cast it right away. But we can always just grab it regardless. So definitely huge fan of that. Land base looks really good too. Blood Crypt, Castlock Twain, Caves of Coilus, Godless Shrine, Haunted Ridge, Isolated Chapel, Sacred Foundry, Savai Triome, Shattered Sanctum, Saphir Springs, and Swamp. I like it. You got fast land, or sorry, not fast lands. You got the shock lands, you've got some pain lands, you got some slow lands in there, you got some check lands. I do like it. I do like the Lock Twain as well. It's got everything you need, which is really good. And then the sideboard also looks very good. We've got Deafening Silence, fantastic card in the sideboard. Thoughtseize, Hidetsugu Consumes All, Leyland of the Void, and one more Shieldred of the Apocalypse. I mean, fantastic. Honestly, Chef's Kiss. This deck is super, super spicy. Just Mardu Doom is just really cool in general. Doom Foretold is a very, very underrated card. And if you're looking to play a really spicy Doom Foretold deck, I would highly suggest this one. So excellent job, Luke. This deck looks awesome. Okay, well, that takes us to the end of the video here. Thanks so much for watching this video, and huge shout out to everyone who submitted decks here for this video. And if you want to be potentially featured in the next video, go ahead and leave a deck list in the comment section, and there's a good chance that it'll be in the next video here. And if you're not a regular viewer of this channel, definitely go ahead and check out some of the other videos here on the channel where we feature plenty of spicy deck lists from mostly Pioneer and Modern and some standard ones as well. So, I'm Commander Crane. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.